In 1918, an Italian friar started bleeding from his hands, his feet, and from his side for more than 50 years. And nobody can explain why. Doctors examined him, skeptics questioned him, and the Vatican investigated him twice, and they still couldn't find what was up. So today, we're gonna be asking the big question: does the stigmata prove Catholicism? Because a lot of people who had the stigmata, at least the more notable ones, were all Catholic. So let's do a deep dive on it. But the first question is, what is a stigmata? So a stigmata is a wound on the hands, feet, heart that mirrors the wounds that Christ suffered on the cross. And a few people have had it. But the first case of the stigmata was St. Francis of Assisi in 1224. And this happened 2 years before his death. And previously before him, nobody else had a recorded stigmata. But since then, the Catholic Church has 400 recorded cases from multiple people. And most were never verified. And the church was pretty honest about that. But we'll be covering some of the stigmata cases that honestly are mind-boggling. Case number 1, Padre Pio. Padre Pio bled for 5 decades. Doctors examined him, the Vatican investigated him, and they still couldn't find out what was the underlying cause of this. And people claim this stigmata smelled of flowers, which is pretty interesting. Right after he died, the stigmata went away and just left smooth, unscarred skin, which is pretty insane. Case number 2, Therese Newman. She was a German mystic who reportedly, in 1926, started bleeding from her eyes, but only on Fridays. And it wouldn't stop. And scientists could not figure out what was the cause of this. And surprisingly, she only lived on the Eucharist and minimal, very minimal water, which is pretty insane again. Case number 3, the originator, St. Francis of Assisi. The wounds appeared after a 40-day fast on a mountain, and one of the only eyewitnesses at the time, Brother Leo, documented it in writing. But like I said previously, no other case existed before him. Now, people who investigate the stigmata can make the assumption that most stigmatas occur in the Catholic Church. And that is true. And these people were people of extreme devotion, they were very humble, and most of them did not even want the stigmata. Some actually wanted it. And believers made the case that this could prove that Catholicism is the true religion because, 1, like I previously stated, 2, because the wounds don't get infected. People who had the stigmata didn't have their wounds infected, and they would keep going forever and ever. And the wounds didn't behave like normal wounds. They didn't get infected after years and years of exposure to the air and to the environment. And then obviously there's blood loss after death, and a lot of them disappeared after death. Pretty crazy. And most, if not all of these cases were sent to a physician to explain the underlying cause, yet time and time again, they cannot figure out what the cause was. And you can connect all of this back to the gospel because they all connected to the wounds suffered by Christ. And those wounds from Christ are on these people's bodies. But not all the stigmatas were all of Catholic origin. Some stigmatas were actually on some Protestant people. Yeah, they actually were. And this complicates the argument of it being of one specific church. But that doesn't make every case fake. It also serves as evidence, not necessarily proof, that those who had a stigmata had a very devout life. So to conclude this video, does the stigmata prove Catholicism to be true? I would say no. Because no single sign proves a religion. That's typically not how faith works, you know? But what it does prove is what these people actually did in their lifetime to receive the stigmata. Now we know some of the saints such as Padre Pio lived a devout life, Saint Rita, Saint Francis of Assisi, they all had a devotion to the Eucharist. They all lived devout Catholic lives. It does prove one thing, that is a 2,000-year body level echo of people who didn't even want the stigmata, who were humble, pious, and devoted to Christ, and were willing to suffer the same ones that he received on the cross. And I would encourage anybody to look into any of the stigmatas and the people who had them and see what they were living and to incorporate them into their own lives.